I can raise it higher so I can stand up. So it's all good. Here we are.
Yeah, I am starting the
That's
webinar in a
very
second.
professional.
Just make sure I mute this in a second. Okay, I think we are started. We are started. Because we didn't schedule it ahead of time, it has words from last time's webinar in there, but that's okay. So I think we are streaming. I'm just gonna play this really quick. It looks good, so we can start. You guys,
Just
thank
chill.
you so much. Yeah, just chill. It's not a big deal. Thank you guys for whoever's checking in. We're just getting started. This is the ASC webinar series number 11. We are number 11. And today we're going to talk about how to live your truth in today's world. And this is a super important conversation. But before we get into that, in these monthly webinars, we highlight a topic that is related to a monthly theme in the Accountability Success Circle. So let me rewind a little bit, because let me just tell you really, really quickly what the Accountability Success Circle is for those of you who might be watching this on YouTube and are not part of our community. The Accountability Success Circle is a networking and a collaborative, supportive community where you can come in and have more fun while getting things done, getting support on any aspect of your life, whether it be health or relationships or parenting or career and business, and finding that community of people who can support you in a very, very positive way. So we do these monthly webinars, which are, mostly conversation, because, we want to share some tidbits, and they kind of scratch the surface around what we what other things we talk about in more deep detail in the Accountability Success Circle. But what we want to do is just to get some conversation going. And so if you are in the Accountability Success Circle right now, you are on our little Zoom webinar platform, and we will be saying hi to some of you who are showing up right now. And if you're watching this and you're not a member of the ASC yet, come check us out at accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. We'd love to have you. The people are amazing, and I guess we'll just get started. So again, this topic for today is how to live your truth in today's world, and we're going to talk about the role of authenticity and how that plays an important factor in your own success. We're also going to talk about kind of the struggles that prevent us from, because I think that there's a lot of things that we see that might not be true, and why those things are happening. And from there, we will go into a Q&A of some strategies and techniques to allow yourself to really own who you are and allow yourself to do you. And obviously, we've got now our trio of the ASC leadership. Obviously, we always have the amazing Gary Ware, who's going to, I'm sure, do some sort of sound effect. And we wanted to welcome our newest member to our leadership team, Rebecca Mars, who lives in Florida. Woo! We are so happy to have you, Rebecca. And she just started and joined our team as of July. We will be expanding our team further, but we're starting here. I don't know, Rebecca, if you want to say anything about just like what you're hoping to bring to the ASC. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but
Are putting me on the spot, and I'm not the improv person, but I'll play along.
Yeah.
So my background is in wellness, to say the very least, mind, body, soul type wellness. I've been teaching yoga, personal training for over 11, 12 years now, and shifted online about 6 years ago, where I blended all of that together into a coaching practice. So I'm definitely all about authenticity. I love the conversation today, and I do hope to bring all of that and more to the ASC.
Yes, absolutely. And then, so one of the things that when we brought Rebecca on, I was like, let's think of a theme together. Like, I want it to be something that embodies, your vibe. And, the three of us, we really I think there is a lot of overlap in our philosophies. You know, Rebecca has been a member of the ASC for since its inception a little bit, so she kind of knows what the philosophy of why this community was created kind of stands for. So, Rebecca, you came up with the theme of chill, and I'm curious, or just to have you share with everybody else, like what was the thought of having this be the theme to announce you to the ASC and just kind of throw you in the deep end with us, but to also how is chill a good theme for the month of July?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I don't even remember how it came to me or when it came to me, but that's even cooler because it was just like meant to be. It must have been some intuitive hit in that moment of like, we're doing chill for July. That's all I need to know. But from what I've been witnessing, especially, I mean, always, but since all of the quarantining and then the end of May into June, we had everything on the planet has just been like fluffed up. And I've watched a lot of folks that don't necessarily have the awareness that the people that I spend a lot of time with are like the yoga people. It's like, so it's real interesting for me to take a peek into really it's social media where I observe a lot of it. It's like these people need tools. These people need all the chill, and chill can come through in so many ways, whether it's through physical practices, things that you eat. I mean, if we're talking about yoga, there's the whole experience of Ayurveda. If you've heard of Ayurveda, where we can combat heated, elements with things that we eat and do self practices that can literally help calm us down. So there was that whole thought process. And then just to chill out, like how many times have we said, I need to chill out. I need to take a chill pill. And then you add on, I live in Florida, so it's always hot, but then it's summer for most of the folks that are a part of this. And it's hot. So it's time to chill. That's pretty much it. Chill out in every way possible.
I love it. Gary, when I told you that this was the theme that Rebecca wanted, what came to mind for you?
I was like, hell yeah. For multiple reasons. One, because last month was all about progress. And I don't know about you, but most of the people that are in our group are high achievers and they tend to work. And if you think about what season we are in as a global community, we've been at home with, the pandemic and, all the stuff that's going on. People deal with that in different ways. And a lot of people I talked about were just feeling like they were just working themselves ragged just because you can't turn it off. And so chill, I was like, I'm down with chill.
And what's really interesting for me when I thought about it, yes, I'm thinking about, I'm they're both on the beautiful coasts and they see, they get to experience warmth, for most of the year. And for me, we get extreme heat for 2 or 3 months. So July is where summer is in full swing for us, and then we're like, we want to be outside, but like we don't want to be outside. And I think the first thing that I thought about was like, I want to eat popsicles. Like I want to chill in that way. But thinking about it from a deeper perspective, it's funny that the pandemic forced us to slow down a little bit, which would be some form of chill, but I think because it wasn't planned intentionally, it brought with it this like intensity that none of us were really prepared. There was still too much decision making. So yes, it slowed down life, but if you weren't equipped to deal with it, you were like, okay, I have nothing to do. What am I going to do now? And it was trying to make that shift so fast that you lost that sense of chill. So it's interesting now that, a few months have passed. People are starting to get back out there in the world and slowly make connections again in person. And then, things are starting to, come in with the second wave. And people, we're almost now thinking, oh my God, we might need to like go back into quarantine. And that's how it is in California too, right? And Rebecca, I know that you guys are like, Florida is a little bit more of an epicenter nowadays. What's the general sense over there?
People are crazy down here. It's crazy as ever. Florida's just a weird state. I'm not from Florida, so I feel like I can kind of say that differently too. But people from Florida will tell you that Florida is weird, right? Like just generally speaking. But
Yeah.
I just went to Trader Joe's, and you wear your mask. My city has passed the ordinance, so people are wearing masks more, but you still see all the rebels out there, and the cases are booming in my county and my city in Sarasota, and I think the whole state. So I don't know what they're gonna do. I think we have like the one governor who is not mandating a whole lot in terms of statewide. So
Yeah.
see what happens. I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like we need that second wave of a quarantine.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's inevitable that it might happen, but at least we'll be a little bit more equipped because we know we have something to compare it to. And I think too, obviously, with what happened in June, with all of the craziness with George Floyd, and just there was a lot of conversation there too, which created this mass hysteria and conflict. You know, and it's important to because it was going to allow conversation so that we can finally hopefully start to make changes. But I think there is this elevated like blood pressure of our world today right now with everything that's going on. And so looking at this from a sense of trying to chill a little bit more, I think it is very timely, which is so beautiful when we pick these themes that we kind of look at them through the lens of what's happening in our world, and we can start to do stuff about it. And how chill relates to the topic that we're talking about today, how to live your truth in today's world. Do you guys have any thoughts on? I know that we talked about this, and I know I have a perspective of why this is so related to the chill theme, but do either of you want to comment on your thoughts on how chill plays a role in living your truth?
Rebecca, kick it off. we want you to drop some dope rhymes. Not really, but metaphorically. Drop those wisdom bombs.
Little do you know, that's like a skill of mine, a talent, I don't know, but to drop some dope rhymes. But yeah, I'm thinking right away when we're talking about being authentic, and it depends on what part of the population you're in, whether you've even thought of that in a while or whether it's something you've worked a lot on. And I think for the people that really haven't thought about what is authenticity, until you chill, until you slow things down and kind of cool it and let things settle, it's very hard to connect with what is authentic and how to even know within yourself if you're living aligned and authentically. And so chilling out and the chill thing kind of needs to be this bigger umbrella of what you let yourself kind of bask under, so that the aligning and the truth seeking can actually happen. Because if we're in fire mode and we're just putting out fires and creating fires and just running around and feeling that mania, to me, it's very hard to feel aligned. Even if you think you're aligned, when you're living in that energy, it's challenging. So I think chilling is really crucial for that bigger conversation we're going to have today.
I love that. How about you, Gary?
Yeah. And I feel like, again, we talked about where we are as a society, and there has been a lot of chill. You may not think of it as chill, but if prior to this, had COVID and all the other things, like not really, actually, I feel like COVID is the catalyst for a lot of the things that showed up. But COVID required all of us to chill, in that we had a routine. We had, we were just going. And when you're in that default mode, it's almost like you're in a walking trance, in that you don't really see what's going on. And maybe you're living that conditioned life of, oh, I have to show up this way at work. I have to do this, that, and the other. And for the first time, at least in my recollection, like in my lifetime, I'm forced to just be at home. And if you think about when we were kids, now this is more for like the people that grew up in the 80s and the 90s and before that, when it was summertime and you were out of school, we didn't have video games and the likes. We got bored. And I feel like when you get bored, and as Rebecca mentioned, like sitting down and truly sitting down, that's when you can like think about who you are and what, like, that's where the innovation comes from. And that is the cool thing. And so I feel like this is forcing a lot of us to sort of reconcile who we are as an individual. And it comes from slowing the F down.
Yeah. And people who are really ambitious and want to get stuff done, they want to not slow down. They get this like, I don't want to slow down. And this was something that, the whole concept of chilling was something I was super resistant to for many, many years of my life. And, while COVID brought its challenges mentally and emotionally, not being able to have that connection, there's a part of me that loves the fact that we were forced to slow down because nobody would stop us otherwise. I think about when I had my first massive burnout. The only reason I stopped pushing was because my hair was falling out and I was going bald. Like, that was what needed to happen in order for me to be like, slow the F down, right? And even though, I took some time to slow down, then I used my energy and my ideas like to make me go like a million different ways again, and then only to get to the point where I'm like, I gotta slow back down. And it was always like sprint and then rest for a really long time, sprint and then really rest for a long time. And I think that there was a lot that was tied into why I took those actions, and I have been actively trying to focus on this concept of living my truth, because there's so many barriers in our world, which is going to be my segue into just talking about some of these barriers, because this whole authenticity piece is very important for us to live our truth. We'll come back to talking about authenticity too, but let's start by talking about these barriers. What makes us not want to be our true selves in today's world? There's so many things. Should we play a game? Like, pick one and explain why, and then we'll just keep on going until we can't think of any more. Who wants to go first? Rebecca, you can go first. We're just gonna keep on like throwing stuff at you.
Well, the one that pops to mind right away is expectation, and whether that's coming from wherever that's coming from. So just saying a big expectation, whether it's coming from society, culture, things that we think we need to amount to, or coming from parents or siblings, or our friendship circle. So many things can cause us, generally speaking here, to put expectations on ourselves, to be a certain way, to show up a certain way, to do certain things, to wear certain things. So when we have these expectations just like bubbles all around us, I think we can get a little lost in all those little bubbles of other people's expectations, our own expectations, and then what are we left with? We're just being other people and trying to be other things that aren't necessarily us.
Totally. That's a huge one. I think that it is the expectations, not even just what other people have of you, but what expectations you have for yourself too, right? That's crazy.
Great. And it takes a lot of psychic energy to hold up those expectations. And I'll tell like a personal story for me. When so I grew up, my dad was in the Navy, and then we ended up coming to San Diego when I was about 5 or 6. And up until 4th grade, I pretty much went to a different school every year. There was I feel like there was something like we moved once, and then I went to 1st grade, and my mom said that was a terrible school, terrible, like they're giving us a terrible education. And so then I went to another school. And I was actually at that school for 2 years, and then we moved into the house that my parents are at now. And then I went to another school. Now, in light of everything that has been going on with George Floyd, and me sort of thinking about what is my place here as a Black man, I have been forced to like think about like how have I been showing up. And so up until recently, I remember my parents, they said a few things. They said, you need to get good grades. Like, it is a given. Like, if you do not get good grades, you're not going to go nowhere in life, especially as a Black man. Like, you're more likely to end up in jail and prison. So that was a given. Had to get good grades. Even though I didn't really like school, as far as the learning aspect, I like the community aspect. And so, but the other thing is, and I learned a term, it was called code switching, in that I would show up a certain way at school versus at home, because again, if you think about, we are communal individuals, like we are meant to be in tribes. And so for me, wanting to fit in, like I looking back now, like, man, I feel like I am a social chameleon. Like, you can put me in an environment and I can act however I want, however is necessary for that environment. Now, um, that is like, I feel like a survival mechanism, just because, you don't want to be sort of outcasted. And growing up being like pretty much the only black guy in most circles, I was like, all right, well, this is how I needed to act.
Mm.
And like I said, in light of everything that's going on now, I was like, wow, who am I? Am I how I am? Or is this a front that I have conditioned, like what Rebecca mentioned, because of expectations? And then I was like, well, not so much. I have done a lot of work, but it did have me reflect on, is this a behavior that I have sort of adapted, or is this the true me? So yeah, it's sort of meta, but again, that should be a question that everyone asks themselves. Like, are you acting that way because that's who you really are, or is there someone else whose voice is in your head and you're following that?
Yeah, I love that. When you were saying the whole idea of wanting to fit in, like, I think that that's another barrier. Like, we all live to want to feel like we matter and that we belong and that we are loved. And I think a lot of times we have this idea in our mind, which goes back to the expectations of, wanting to do something because it might make somebody like you more, like, it's that way to feel connected to somebody. And I talk about this in my book about the reason why I have been in so many long relationships that have failed, um, until the one that I'm in right now, oh Gary, is that I always was in a relationship trying to make it be something that nobody could argue was a bad relationship. I always was over thoughtful, would go the extra mile. I would do the things that would make the other person happy, because in turn, I would expect that they would like me and they'd have no reason to want to leave. Meanwhile, I am not being the person who, I would do stuff that I wasn't really interested in, right? Like, and even, with my husband now, like, we came into our relationship being just friends, so he kind of knew like the best and the worst of me. I knew the best and the worst of him, so we didn't have that barrier to climb. But when you're in a new relationship with somebody, sometimes it's really hard to, you want to impress them. Like, that's just human nature, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you start to do things because you think that it's the right thing to do for the relationship, or when you try to justify, I'm reading a lot of memoirs right now and looking at relationships that are going bad and just trying to justify why the relationship should keep on going. If you will into that, you really have to ask yourself this question that Gary posed to all of us, which is like, am I doing this because I want to, or am I doing this because I'm being conditioned by some sort of external thing? So I love that. Rebecca, do you have any other thoughts on other barriers that come up? So we talked about, just high expectations, both internally and externally, this desire to want to fit in and be likable, maybe beliefs that were bestowed upon us by our family or, the people surrounding us or in our environments. Is there anything else that we can think of?
Well, like, it kind of ties in, but just having bad habits and having, I'm thinking of certain like wellness related habits, because I believe if we're not clear and healthy, whether it's in the foods we eat, staying hydrated, getting exercise, if we're not doing things like that that are keeping us connected to our bodies, which we are not our bodies, but we have these bodies, that I've seen that happen time and time again, which is really why I wanted to get into coaching. I was working with people in gyms and in yoga classes, and then we have these rich conversations, and it's like there's so much more going on once people like were able to add yoga to their life or add exercise to their life or clean up their eating. And it was like they were more authentic when they started to make these changes. So I think people also can just be going through life doing what they've been doing, as specifically in having those habits, and that can cloud the whole process of being able to really tune into who you are too. So
Nice. Gary, you have anything else?
That brings up a really good point. Picking off of what Rebecca said, our mood and like being your authentic self. A lot of times, like we think we are our emotions, but you're not. And like in what is going on right now, we're probably in this heightened sense of like, I don't know, fear or something like that. And there, going back to the science states there are mood influence everything. So when you're not in a good mood, when you're in a bad mood, um, you're more likely to eat less healthily. That mood infects our friends and it decreases our empathy, for one another. And so again, it is an outside stimulus, and it, maybe it goes back to like conditioning, but I feel like it is something where, like, to go super deep on this, um, because we have our conscious mind and we have our unconscious mind, and at the end of the day, your unconscious mind rules everything. Case in point, you do not know your phone number, but now you know your phone number. In that, your conscious mind can only hold 5 plus or minus 2 things. Everything else resides in the unconscious mind. However, for you to fully understand and believe that there is something outside of your control that is governing your actions, that used to be thought of as crazy. It has only been recently that we've come to understand that yes, there is the unconscious mind that, if you've ever been driving and then you get home and you're like, how the hell did I get here so fast? It was your unconscious mind that was driving. So this is the thing. If something triggers you or whatever, and you are not you're not really aware of it, you're probably going to be on autopilot. Like, for example, prior to this, I was a little bit hangry, and the actions and stuff that I was doing was not really authentically geared. It was like, I am hungry and I'm getting like sort of short tempered and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like our moods really play a big part in, and if you're not conscious about that, you're not going to be your authentic self.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good one. I didn't even think about that. That's awesome. All right, so I know that I want to spend a lot of time talking about like real strategies that people can take in this, to A, chill, but then to also B, learn how to find your authentic self. But before we do that, I would love for each of us to define authenticity, but like let's do it in a way where we don't impact each other's sentences, so that we allow ourselves to share our authentic definition of authentic without impacting each other. So would you guys be up for this little exercise? You have a piece of paper or a pen, or you can write it down if you want, just so that, and then we can hold it up and then read it. So we'll take a minute, and anybody who is watching while we do this, why don't you take take a pen and paper, or your phone if you want to type it in, and just write down what your definition of authentic is. So we're going to take a minute to do that. All right, I'm done.
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 All right. So we'll hold them up on the count of 3, and then we'll just read one at a time. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hold it up. Okay. Rebecca, you read yours first.
Okay.
We're picking on you. This is like your hazing ritual.
Right. I was going to say, I'm being hazed here. I'll take this type of hazing any day. Authentic. I wrote being in clarity around and connected to truth, big capital T truth, and then the individual little truths that come with that, aligning your thoughts, words, and actions around those truths.
I love that. Awesome. And then Gary, you go.
Okay. Being congruent and allowing your true nature to shine because you feel safe in your environment.
I love that. And I wrote, flowing through without judgment or fear and embracing uniqueness regardless of the outcome. So I love all of these definitions. And what I also love about this exercise that I just literally made up on the spot is that it's authentic. You know, we're kind of saying similar things, but different things, but it's still all is accepted. And I don't know. That's what I wanted to say. What about you guys? Do you see, like, at the top of my paper says, let's get shit done. It's from one of my files. Yay. But I love that because, yeah, we all have different ways of describing it, but it still sounds the same in a sense, right?
A lot of similarities. And you know what? I'll let you know what came up for me in doing that. I was like, there was a little bit of inauthentic, whatever. I didn't feel authentic at first because I was like, I don't know. What do I say? Is this going to be right? You know, is that like sort of that gremlin? And then I was like, no. It's like, yeah, you know, just let it flow. All right, cool. Yeah. Here you go. So, but yeah, I really liked it. And you're right. They were all different. Mm-hmm. And I felt like there was a lot of similarity and overlap.
Yeah.
That we can definitely unpack.
I agree. So, like, the one thing that I had heard in Rebecca's, like, the thing that's, like, the word that stood out for me for Rebecca was the word truth. Mm-hmm. Did any other word come out from there for you, Gary?
Nope. Okay. Especially because she said capital T truth.
Yeah. It was like truth. And then for Gary's, what was the thing that stood out to me? Can you read yours again?
Be congruent and allowing your true nature to shine because you feel safe in your environment.
I feel like, yeah, I remember you saying congruent. Like, that was congruent.
And that's, yeah, for me, like, I feel like congruent means your outside matches your inside. Like, yeah. You know, you can definitely tell when someone is not incongruent.
All right. And then in my definition, flowing through without judgment or fear and embracing uniqueness regardless of the outcome. What was the big part that stood out there for you guys?
Like, without judgment or fear. Like, I feel like that was a big one. And that's why, like, in mine where I put because you feel safe, because it reminds me of this quote from Brene Brown, which was basically fitting in is the opposite of belonging. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because if you're trying to fit in, you're not being your true self.
That's totally true.
So like there's a sense of safety there in order to, like, really get down with that.
So I think, you know, one of the points that I would like to make about authenticity is that, like, there's no one right way for anything. And I think that that's always been my philosophy in life, and how, you know, when we started building this community, it was like, we don't want us to all be fitting in this mold. We want to have similar philosophies and similar, you know, feelings about how we want to, like, look at life, you know, whatever that lens is. But how you show up is super different. And, you know, for both Gary and Rebecca, I feel like I'm very similar to them and also very different from them in all these different ways. And that's, you know, that uniqueness, like, brings a different flair to our different leadership styles, right? So as we're, you know, now this group of 3 and we'll be expanding the team in the future, you know, Gary, it has, like, this, you know, super strength of creativity and play, and I have this super strength of, like, planning, organization, and getting things done, and Rebecca has this, like, flowy, like, connection to your body that, you know, yes, we care about, like, moving our body, but, like, she, like, epitomizes that, but we all bring different, you know, she's got that wellness perspective, and she, you know, we have all these different sides of a now tri-faced coin that will become this hexagonal something down the road. But being able to cherish the uniqueness of the paths that brought us all together is and just making sure that we are role models of living our truth so that we can inspire other people to live their truth is, I think this is really the only strategy. And so we want to impart some wisdom on how you can start living your truth so we can kind of infect the world and stop all of this crazy stuff that's happening in media, that the conflict that you're just drawn to, that's not necessarily even real, and start creating real authentic connections, and that aren't guided to here's a framework that you have to follow, because a framework might be good, but it's not one size fits all, right? So let's talk about strategies. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Where do we want to start? I'm gonna give Rebecca a break first. I'm gonna have Gary just start with a strategy that you think is a good one in this journey to living your truth.
Well, I think we all hit on some form of this is, feeling safe to be yourself. And in order to really be your authentic self, you need to have that feeling of psychological safety. And so the question that I have for all of you is, who are you surrounding yourself with? In the school that I got trained for as far as coaching, we had this program called World Power, and they talked about the 9 environments of you, and all of them influence you in some way, shape, or form. So that is everything from the media, that's everything from your close acquaintances to your people in your outside network, all of that. And so the first question is, can you spend time auditing that and thinking about the energy that it gives off? And April mentioned this time and time again. I wish I had all of the mentions and all of the quickies and stuff, but April's constantly talking about you should audit your social media feed, audit those feeds. And if the things that you see in that feed, if it is making you feel anything but joy, what can you do to silence them, mute them, get some distance from them? And I know that it may be challenging with, we're a stay-at-home order, and you might be closely surrounded by people that, that aren't necessarily bringing you joy. And so easier said than done, but that is the first step is, and not feeling guilty about it too. Because I know, sometimes family is, is one of those things. It's yes, you may have been born to a certain family, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their views represent your views. And especially if you moved away and maybe you've had other experiences and you realized, again, the last 4 years, especially here in the US and what's going on lately, there's been so much dividedness and people are so steadfast in their views. And I have a friend who essentially disowned their family because of all the stuff that is going on. And they realized wow, my family is not sort of woke, as the kids would say. And I wouldn't necessarily say that, it's not that they're not woke. It's just that they're sort of steadfast in their views and they're not willing to see any other perspective. So I'll leave it at that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. That was good. Rebecca, do you have you want to share a strategy from your perspective?
Yeah, I wasn't sure where this would fit in, but I think I'll add it in here in terms of authenticity. I always think of this phrase that one of my teachers taught me, and I don't know, you guys have probably heard it to some degree, of who are you when no one is watching? Mm-hmm. And for people to either, one, carve out time to be by themselves, chill a little bit and take that slow down time, or really I think solo time is more important, and to ask that question in that moment. Or it might be a bigger process of who are you when no one is watching? Well, when's the last time you had no one watching you? So you might again need to carve out the space, and whether you're in that space now and you can reflect on it, or it might be several steps to actually get to where you can reflect on it. But, then what shows up when you ask yourself that? When no one is watching, who am I? And it might take many rounds of, writing the question out or asking it to yourself. And I think that's a great first step to start peeling back the layers of the things that you're wearing that are not yours, and letting you get a little closer to what is yours. And I know for me, that's been a powerful statement to revisit from time to time. And just those moments of, when you're by yourself, are you even being authentic then? Or are you still letting those other, expectations and communities, environments, are they the ones that are governing you even when no one else is around? So, yeah.
That's so good. And I'm just thinking about, like, if no one was watching, I would be like laying in bed on my phone, just doing whatever and not looking at my calendar.
Can I add to that? Like,
yeah, go for it.
If you want to take it to the next level, so there's two. One is a little bit challenging, and then the next one's super challenging. So I've done both, and they really like sort of uncover a lot of stuff. So the first one is just like what Rebecca mentioned, like you're sort of having a conversation with yourself. A lot of times we don't take the moment to slow down and actually allow that to happen, because I feel like a lot of us, myself included, are scared of like, what are the voices? What's going to show up when we take time to just sort of pause and reflect? But when you ask those questions, like, who are you? Who is this person? What, the first one, I was in a group of, was it like 300 people, and we all did this. And there were two options. One, there was a photo. When we first came to the event, they took a picture of us, and they just took a picture of us. And then we got the photo for this part of the event. And we had to look at that photo for 5 minutes. Just look at that photo. And they were asking questions. Who is this person? What's on this person's mind? And you can see like people are weeping. And then another version of that is you're looking in the mirror at yourself. So if you don't have a mirror, you take out your camera, you're looking at it. And again, for 5 minutes, and you're asking these questions, like, what brings this person joy? And like, you're looking at yourself eye to eye. Now, this is the really challenging one, the third part. So if you didn't think that was challenging, this one definitely is challenging. And it is, you're in a full length mirror, again, 5 minutes, you're completely naked, and you're just looking at yourself in the eye, just sort of looking over yourself. And it's just more of that sort of self-love of just appreciating you for you regardless. And again, you're right. Sometimes those other voices and stuff will show up, where that criticism. But again, if you want to start to get back to your authentic self, you have to start with yourself and be with yourself.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be super uncomfortable. I'd go straight to like all of the things that I see as flaws. Oh, I'm having to do that for 5 minutes. Like, I don't even think I'd do that for 2. So that's great. If I were to give a strategy, and I don't know, I feel like I say this time and time again, and I'm constantly repeating myself because it's always the thing that it's always the answer that comes out in anything that when I'm interviewed or if I'm doing, a guest training or something like that. But I mean, I think that speaks to the magnitude of the importance of this is to, understand what your values are, right? I always talk about now that I've got the story that I have my values tattooed on my arms because I wouldn't say that they were my values 4 years ago. I didn't have any values or like known values 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But it was something that you have to kind of go through, and it's a very great self-discovery process to understand who you are through the lens of values. Values help you make easier decisions. I was listening to the radio this morning, and this guy was like, I feel like I have all this anxiety around like things that how much money should I save versus how much I should like spend for fun. And like, I wanted to be like, what are your values? Like, I always think about this, and, knowing values has all of these other benefits to it. But when it comes to authenticity, having those values and knowing that those are yours, it's almost kind of this like badge of honor where you understand what your truth is, right? So for me, my top values are authenticity, fun, accomplishment, and connection. When I am trying to make a decision, I run them through those filters. When I notice that I have a behavior that isn't in line with this, like there's a lot of times I'm asked to do something and I'm like smiling through my teeth, like, sure, I'll do it. And I feel this anxiety of like, this is not going to be fun. Like, I know that I'm not being authentic. So it's almost kind of your like checks and balances. Or are you walking your own talk? So I would definitely say, and if you're watching this and you're like, I don't know how to find my values, this is like one of my favorite exercises to do. Let me help you find your values. I have tools, I have all this. You could even type in values assessment in the Google search and find something. But the closer you can get to nailing those values down, the easier it will be to really live your truth and be more authentic. So that's my tip. Do we have any other tools? I mean, there's so many other strategies, but or anything to comment on that.
Go ahead, Rebecca. You were about to talk.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say what you said, April, of like, ooh, that didn't feel good. I just wanted to point out the like physiological component of that, where like your body's such a great tool for authenticity in the sense that like exactly what you said, you probably felt it somewhere in your body of like a no or an ooh or like that's not me. Yeah. And again, like if you're not really connected to your body, it's a little harder to listen to it. But just that feeling of like, ooh, no. So just all the more reason to like get into this thing.
Yeah. Gary, were you going to say something? I have a question for Rebecca when it comes to body, but you go first.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll just throw this out, like values core. Now you want to take it, there's like, oh yeah, hey, values. Oh, this sounds good. Like they're aspirational. But yeah, I would love to like hear more from Rebecca, like on like, how do you like, what is that? How do you know? But I was going to say, if you say it out loud, it should sound congruent. I like to say that we're congruent in that, oh yeah, my value is self-expression or, whatever. But like there's probably like you say it out loud and just, you don't seem like you even believe it. But the other thing is once you have those values, taking time to outline, what does it mean to truly live into those values? What are the behaviors of those values? So that way you can sort of check yourself before you wreck yourself. Mm-hmm. And you can sort of self-evaluate and realize like, hey, am I truly living into my values based on the behaviors that I've been doing in the last month? And if not, like, how can I sort of shift?
Yeah, I love that. What was I going to ask? So Rebecca, one of the things that I love about you is this ability to tie to body, and I always think about like, all right, yes, I know I need to move my body, and I know that my body can tell me things, and it clearly did, in those extreme cases. But I think for some people who, either might not have the awareness of, how the body plays a role, and because you have such a great expertise in being in tune with this, I feel like this should also be a part of the authenticity conversation in terms of, how do you leverage your body to step into your truth? So what types of things can we do that are simple on our own? Because obviously we only have like 12 more minutes to chat through this, but as a first step, if we're trying to figure out like, okay, I want to step into, and I know that I've got to do some stuff with my mind, but like, how do I integrate, my soul and my body into this so that it is an all-encompassing experience and not just like, trying to, use your head to get to where you're at, because it all has to be intertwined and all has to be connected. So like, what would be, something that you would do with one of your clients of, just trying to get them more in tune so that they can even be in that position to start looking for the truth?
Well, I haven't mentioned the big M word yet, which is meditation. And meditation is so much more than what so many people think it is. So like two little answers floating in my head in terms of like first, like just moving your body, because there are so many people that are sedentary, whether it's something more recent because of this whole stay home thing, or if people just have those jobs where they get in the car or they get in public transportation, they get to work, they sit. And there's just really not a lot of creative movement when you think of what your body is meant to do. I mean, this body can do so many things. It can make so many shapes, you know, like improv is so great for that. I think just because, you know, you're put on the spot and you have to be creative in your mind, and then your body might do something that you don't always do. And just that stuff is great. And so if anyone watching this is going, yeah, I just sit still all the time, or I sit in this one fixed spot. Like, well, what about reaching behind you and you got all this, you know, you can make all these creative things. So that's kind of the first thing, is to just get into your body. But then there's also this other part where there are plenty of people that are very in their bodies, whether they're like extreme runners or athletes, or they're always in their bodies. But so then there's like next level in terms of, okay, you're in your body, but are you like in your body, or are you in this part of your body, which is your head? So then the next step is like getting out of your head and actually into the neck down body part, because the places that are really going to talk to you about authenticity are your heart and the gut. And my guess is most people have felt some sensation in their heart through their whole life, or some feeling in their belly at some point that was not just like hunger, it's like gut instinct, you know, I should or shouldn't do that, or they've maybe even used that phrase, you know, my gut tells me this, or my heart feels that. And so we use these little things all the time, and I think it's just building awareness around that. So first, just move your body, period, if you're very stagnant and sedentary. And then next, make sure you're actually getting in here. So whether that means establishing some sort of breathwork practice, meditation, I think that just a few deep breaths can shift things for so many people. And even right now, like, are you just breathing regularly? Most likely. You haven't thought about your breath during this webinar. I haven't. But as soon as I tell myself, like, how am I breathing? Am I breathing into my heart, my belly? Like, oh. And it also forces us in the best way possible to slow down, to add a little chill. And in that space that you create by breathing, whether it becomes more of a meditative experience for you, or it's just literally a couple deep breaths, I think that is really a great first step for folks when we're talking about using the body as this place of wisdom.
So, I mean, there are people who, like, you know, will sit and meditate and be quiet and, like, go, like, 10 minutes or whatever. But, like, and what you're saying here is that, like, you don't have to, like, get into this crazy practice as a start. Like, you can just take a few deep breaths as a start, which is why, like, you know, I think a lot of people are like, I don't meditate. I mean, I was definitely one of those people, like, I had never meditated before. I laughed the first time I tried meditating because I could not sit still for 3 minutes. But to even, you know, just take that deep breath, it's like that release of air and just flow. Even if you're sitting while you're breathing, you're still moving parts of your body. And it's just as simple as that. But then I think it then just comes back to this idea that, like, we have to slow the F down, right? Like, it comes full circle with this whole, like, we need to chill out. And why is our society so fast paced? Why have we been programmed to hustle till there's no more? You know, like, I can't tell you how many times I hear people like, oh God, I have so much to do and I'm just exhausted, and, like, I want to take a sabbatical, or I need a vacation. Like, I hear that so much, but we kind of did that to ourselves, or society did that to us, or, like, we allowed that to become a part of our space. So what if we were to be able to capitalize on the slowness that COVID has forced upon us to, like, actually slow down and be like, what is it that I really want?
You know, to that point, if Rebecca's going to drop the big M word, I'm going to drop the big P word. And that is play. In that, so my mentor, Gwen Gorton, she said, play brings out your unbounded true nature. Like, and I beg to believe that when you're in a play-like state, it is very meditative in that you're completely focused. You are, probably, like, your breathing is probably sort of regulated, and, like, you're just in this zen-like moment. If you think about any sort of play that you've done, you know, whether it's physical play, whether maybe it's more storytelling play, like they're in the book Play by Dr. Stuart Brown, he talks about different play personalities, and there's so many different ways of play. But the cool thing is, and this is the challenge, since we're talking about strategies, how did you play when you were younger? What was your form of play? And what I mean by play, again, you're right. Like as adults, like play can often seen as a frivolous activity, um, and it's something that kids do. And also, when people think about play, sometimes they get pigeonholed to like sports. But I like you to think of what did you do just for the sake of doing it that brought you joy, when you were younger, and how can you bring that into your current existence just for a short period of time? That is in its like sort of true state is chilling out because you're making space for that. But also you probably will get a glimpse back into who you were before you actually cared about what other people thought about you.
Yeah. I love that. I remember, Gary, you and I had a conversation, what was that, 4 years ago, when I had you on my little
Your way, right away.
your life, your way series.
Yes.
It's all about authenticity. But we talked about the concept of play, and I think it was like one of those things. I remember we were having a conversation about Candy Crush, and like I was like, oh, like using that as a power up. And I think whether I've said it or not, sometimes I get too like involved in the games that I'm playing, but that has definitely been a strategy where I say, like I'm gonna give myself this time to play this game, even though it might suck the life out of me if I allow it to, but to give, to do it every so often. And that has been something that I've consistently done since we first met. And I think, Rebecca, one of the things that I don't remember, we were at a retreat together in our mastermind, and I remember that, I don't know if this was when you were there, but there was this time that I had I did like an energy healing or something like that, and like I found out that like when I'm stressed and I'm frustrated, I carry a lot of tension in my lower back. And so I always know when, this is kind of building the awareness, right? Like I started to realize that like if I'm, running 1,000 miles a minute and I'm feeling the pressure, if my back is starting to hurt, which I've never noticed before that, I know that that's something like this is my trigger to like slow down. And so it's just really interesting to see how all of this is so interconnected. And I think that, and we're going to start wrapping up in a second, but I want to start thinking about like where do we go from here? We've got some strategies, things that we can try. We can try any or all of them or none of them or something totally different that we didn't talk about today. But what is the one thing that we want to impart on the audience as they've gotten through the first 57 minutes of this webinar, that can be something that they take with them if they were to not hear anything else but the last 3 minutes. So I will start. And one of the things that I really want to say when it comes to authenticity and living in your truth is that it is very, very difficult sometimes to it is a challenge to try to live your authentic self. I think that it's unrealistic to think that there's never a time where we want to impress somebody else and make other people happy at the expense of what we really want to do. It's hard to not see other things that you want and try to compare and try to mimic something because it looks good to you. It's not an easy path. But one of the things that I want to say is that I firmly believe that real success comes from your ability to be confident about who you are. And I think that that's what we need to chase in our lives. If we're going to chase any one thing, it's understanding and feeling confident about who we are. And like you can leave this world feeling like you actually had success. That's what I want to say. Gary, what do you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, if you heard nothing but you heard this, I'd like to invite you to get bored. I know easier said than done. Totally get it. There's a lot on your plate. You may have kids, you may have career. Maybe just do it for 5 minutes. And maybe this sort of ties into like the meditative state as well. But allow yourself to just get bored and truly bored, like back when we were kids, because that is going to almost like strip away. It's almost like a detox of all of those, other things, that influences that have been sort of keeping you from being your authentic self, and see what voice shows up.
Love that. Rebecca, take us home.
Bring us home.
Well, I like that you mentioned the boredom thing, because actually I put a post up last week around just people using the whole "I'm in the house bored," like whatever that little TikTok song was that everybody was doing. And it's like, it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's people, I think, are giving it such a different connotation right now, and I was embracing it. So I second what you said. Get bored. And it's all part of this transformation, like these moments where we can be bored and reflect. It's this whole cocooning effect. But really, I'd just like to tie in the chill piece of just remembering to chill out, whatever that means to you. Can that just be your intention? I'm going to chill out a little bit more. And whether it's tomorrow, or you can finally like carve out the time, or this weekend, can that be on your to-do list just with everything else? Chill.
Give yourself the permission to do it too.
Yeah, like here's your permission slip. Like everybody just go chill out and see what happens there, because I think, like we had mentioned, that can also open the door to so much more, and it's just going to give you a break. Your body, your brain, like your energy can just recharge. So chill.
I love this. Yay, team! All right, for those of you who are in the ASC and chatting us, we're waving hello and goodbye as we finish yet another wonderful webinar. If you have any questions in the ASC, obviously when this gets the replay gets posted, if you're watching it on the replay, feel free to drop your questions in the comments. And Terry says, awesome webinar! And for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, again, if you have any questions about the Accountability Success Circle or want to know what we're all about, you can just go to www.accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. We are here to support you and answer any questions you have and help you get things done. And we'll check you out in next month's webinar. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.